Hey, so in this video, I want to talk about quitting your job and like a roadmap for how to go about doing it if it's something that you want to do. So if you don't know, I quit my job in May of 2021 and I consumed a ton of quitting your job content, mindset content, like how to actually go about doing it. And so I'm kind of distilling all of that into one video because I learned a lot of things. And in order to do it, I had to overcome a lot of limiting beliefs and kind of get the bravery to do it. And I wanted to feel like I was doing it responsibly, like especially if you're someone that's kind of like a type A overachiever type person, it seems really scary, or it can seem really scary, and you want to feel like you're doing it the right way. And so that's kind of where I was at. And so I want to kind of show you how to do it. So the first thing that you really have to kind of overcome is desire. And it's really a question of, do you really want to do it? You have to get the desire to do it. I feel like a lot of people, I don't know what they want. They're actually kind of an autopilot. They're just doing what a lot of people say is the responsible thing to do, especially if you are kind of that type A overachiever type person. You don't want to make a mistake. And so when you don't want to make a mistake, it kind of leads you to listening to other people's advice and kind of going down that path. And so I kind of did that whole thing. I was like, I'll go to college and I'll get good grades in order to go to college, and I'll have the 401k, the whole retirement thing. And I just wanted to be so responsible. And after a while, you kind of realize that maybe you've been sold a little bit of a lie, or maybe you made this decision when you were 18 and you're like, maybe I could have put some more thought into this decision. Maybe I don't want to do this for the next 40 years, as it turns out. Like, it used to be easier. It was like 3 years of middle school, 4 years of high school, and now it's like 40 years of working. Like, that's a way longer stretch than you've ever been accustomed to, like if you're a young adult. And so you have to kind of assess, do you really have the desire? And for me, I just put this here to remind myself to tell the story. But a couple years ago, I got a breast lump, and that is when my desire got really cleared up and crystal clear. When I got that breast lump, I realized I was so afraid of dying. I was like, if I die right now at this age, I think everyone would be afraid to die at like 23 years old or whatever I was. But really what was so bad about it, I was like, I haven't lived. I was like, I don't want to die just having been a teacher. Not that there's anything wrong with being a teacher, but it's just not in alignment with me and what I wanted to do. And I was like, it made being afraid of dying so much worse than it really needed to be. You know what I mean? Like, if you really live your life on earth to its fullest potential and really in alignment, and you feel like you live out your purpose, that fear of death actually really diminishes. And I found that as time has gone on, it's really diminished because you don't feel like you're wasting your life. But when you feel like you're wasting your life, that fear of death can be like massive and all consuming. So for me, that's what kind of cleared it up for me. But other people don't have those experiences, So what do you do, like, if you haven't had this really, like, life or death sort of experience thing that I kind of went through? And one thing that I would ask is kind of the 10-year question. It's like, okay, 10 years from now, if you were still doing the same job you're doing right now, does that feel depressing? Does that feel constricting? Or does that feel expansive? And you know what? If you're in a job and it feels expansive, you're like, yeah, I would actually enjoy being here 10 years from now, then, stick with it. But if it feels depressing and it feels kind of constricting, that's kind of the first sign that's like, if it's not going to last 10 more years, I don't want to give it 10 more minutes. And so if you're in the position where it feels depressing to be in this job 10 years from now, you should start making a plan today to get out of it. You don't need to quit today, but you really want to start making a plan for, like, how can we get out of here? Because you're really robbing the world of the best you. And what's best for the world is for you to be the most lit up. And I know when some people go about quitting their job, they're like, I just don't want to leave my boss all high and dry. There's supply chain issues and the great resignation. I don't want to leave them all high and dry, And those are valid concerns. And if you have those concerns, that's nice of you, for one. But two, you're robbing the world of your best gift. If there's something that you would desire to do more, you're going to do it better. You're going to enjoy it more. You're going to be able to get better at it because you enjoy doing it. And so you're doing a disservice to the world by, staying in this job that feels really depressing to you. You're not going to be there for your family as well, for your friends as well, if you're depressed. When I was at this job I didn't like, my energy was completely gone, so depressing, and my relationships have gotten so much better, and I feel like I'm there for the people around me, and I'm able to have a much more well-rounded life than just go to work, hate my job, come home. It's much more, like, brilliant. It's a much more bright life that I feel like I'm living. And then that's the other thing I would say is that if you have this desire, it's there for a reason. Like, if you believe in God or purpose or something like that, you should know this desire is put there for a reason, like this desire for your heart. And some people are like, oh, this thing I want to do, it's just silly. I don't want to write this book. I don't know. But if you want to do it, that itch is not going to go away. And that itch not acted upon turns into regret later on down the road. And I believe that everyone has these desires for a reason. And so you should really pursue it, really explore these desires. So that's kind of the first thing. You have to kind of suss out this desire. And if it's a desire that's kind of nagging and it doesn't really go away, then you need to act on it. You're never going to be 100% sure. Like when I quit my job, I wasn't 100% sure that I wanted to do YouTube, but that becomes more fully developed as time goes on. And if it's just like it doesn't go away, if it nags on you and doesn't go away, that's desire enough, in my opinion. So then the next stage, then there's some mindset issues. So let's say, okay, you decide, okay, I want to quit my job. Then there's some mindset issues. And that can come up as limiting beliefs, like, oh, this silly book I want to write, or I'm not good enough to do it. Like, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I have the skills, or I don't know if I have the talent to do it. And this is really where a lot of people get hooked up, or they have their big hang-ups. And so they will kind of ignore the desire when really it's the limiting beliefs that are really the hang-up. But they mask it as like, oh, no, I don't really want to. I don't really want to quit my job. But no, you do really want to quit your job. You complain about your job every evening. It's just you don't believe that you have what it takes. And so this mindset, it can be a really big hang-up. So the thing I wrote down here, 10,000. This is the 10,000 hour rule. So Malcolm Gladwell, he coined this as, on average, it takes people 10,000 hours to become an expert at something. So this on average, so there is he does discuss that there's like a little bit of talent involved. Like some people can reach the expert threshold quicker than 10,000 hours. Some people it takes longer, but on average, it takes 10,000 hours to be an expert. And this was something that was really beneficial to me, is when I took the whole talent thing out of it. I just kind of made myself believe that like talent doesn't exist. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I kind of get myself in the mindset that talent doesn't exist. And all I need to do is get to 10,000 hours and I can get there. And that makes it easier. It's like we're all normal people. It's not these special people and then me, just like this normal person who could never do it. I'm not funny enough to be on YouTube or just stuff like that. It's all you have to do is get to 10,000 hours. And that's the mindset that I have for myself. If I can just get there, stop focusing on talent and just focus on perseverance, that's really what's been so helpful for me. I've heard that it's one of the most uncommon traits in humans to be consistent and to persevere when it comes to like a career or something like that. So if you can just be consistent and persevere, you already are just light years ahead of everyone else, because so many other people are just ignoring their desires and they're not working on their mindset. And so if you actually work and you persevere, you're light years ahead of everyone else. I'm serious. Most people are just out there criticizing other people on the internet, and they're criticizing books, and they're criticizing all this stuff, but happy people don't criticize. It's these people that never got in the ring that spend all their time criticizing, and I don't want you to be in that position. I want you to be living your life, not afraid of death, and not criticizing other people, because you're so happy with your own life. And so that's what I would encourage you. Just get to 10,000 hours. It's not this whole talent thing, but just put in the work. Give yourself a shot. And for people around you, like my mindset is, if someone starts something that they really want to do, like they really want to write a book or they really want to do music or, whatever it is, I always encourage them hardcore at the beginning. Even if in my mind, I think it sucks. Because to me, it doesn't matter. I'm like, we'll see what they're made of when they get to 10,000 hours. But I'm not going to judge it based on how they acted like in the first hour of doing something. When people have done their first creation, that's when you have to be like the most gentle with them and really the most encouraging. Because basically everyone sucks at the beginning. I mean, you're not just born talented at producing music on Ableton or something, there's very specific skills that you're not just born with. Maybe you have a little bit of talent, but basically everyone needs to work to get there. So the next thing, this is the growth mindset that you have to develop. A fixed mindset, this was, when I first started teaching, this was like a big thing in education when I started, but a fixed mindset says, I was born with these talents. I'm either good at it or I'm not. It's fixed. A growth mindset says, I can get better at it. And now if you have these different mindsets, sometimes you can have one mindset in one area of your life, but you have the other mindset in a different area of your life, or maybe you have, it's kind of like a scale somewhere in the middle. But it can cause some behaviors in your life. For example, if you think that things are fixed, like you were born this good, like for me with YouTube, you're born this good and you're never going to get any better, that leads you to not take any risks. Because as soon as you put a video out there and you're like, oh wow, this video is not very good, that's as good as I'm always going to be, then it leads you to not take any risks. And that really is a problem. But if you have a growth mindset that says, I just got to persevere, I got to put in consistent work, I just got to get to 10,000 hours and I'm growing my skill set, you're more likely to make mistakes. You're like, yeah, I'm not to 10,000 hours yet. I can experiment, I can make mistakes, and it's totally fine. And then the final thing, I put Q is greater than Q. My cat is going to jump on the cookie. The final thing, quantity is more important than quality because quantity begets quality. It's this whole 10,000 hour rule. You just put it in, put in the work, and the quality grows over time. But a lot of people have kind of this limiting belief that's like, oh, it has to be perfect. And that leads them to procrastinate and then never create anything in the first place. And then you can never get to the 10,000 hours. And so then you can never really get good. And so it is kind of this round and round thing that just kind of perpetuates the cycle of you're not good enough and then finding proof and evidence that you're not good enough. Finally, if you get over these mindset issues and you decide, okay, I'm going to take the leap, this is when it's time for a side hustle. Which, it's crazy at the time. Probably 3 years ago, I'd never heard of a side hustle. I didn't even know what it was. But a side hustle just means that you're doing 2 jobs at the same time. You've got your current job, and then you're doing something on the side. And so it doesn't have to be scary. It's not like, oh, boom, cold turkey, you quit your job. It doesn't have to be like that. It's like what I did when I was going from teaching to YouTube is I would, at 6 a.m., I would wake up, work on YouTube, then I would go to school, and I would teach, and then I'd be done for the day. And that's the way that I like to do it. I wanted to do the most important thing first. And to me, pursuing YouTube was kind of the priority. And then when I started making more money and we started making a plan, I was like, you know what? I think I could do a job on the side instead of teaching. And so then I was like, I could just do a part-time job. So my plan was to do a part-time job on YouTube and quit the full-time teaching. And then we kind of figured out this other plan, living with parents. And so there are sacrifices needed along the way, and you just have to figure out what type of sacrifices you're willing to make. For me, while I was teaching, it was waking up at 6 a.m. And so it's not like you're just going to fall off a cliff. It's not like you have a job, boom, you're going to die, you have no insurance now, and all this stuff. No, it's a gradual thing. You have your teaching job, or that's what I had. I had my teaching job, and then there's a period of time where I'm kind of doing both, and then now I've just kind of turned, I'm doing this other thing. And so it's really not that scary. I think a lot of people make it like, oh, no, it's going to be this big, terrible thing. There was a year where I was putting in a lot of work and I wanted to do YouTube in the morning, so I woke up early. But if you wanted to stay up late and do it, you could do that. I mean, there are lots of ways to make it work for you, but it's not like this cliff that you're just you quit your job, fall off. So if I were you, I would set some goals and say, okay, this is the minimum amount of money I need to make from the side hustle to make it happen. And instead of saying oh, well, here's a barrier, I can't do it, or I can't do this, really reframing questions and how could I do this? It makes such a big difference. Some people sit there and they're like, oh, this person's, well, they're just so lucky. They're just having this situation. They get to do YouTube and they only work this much hours a day. You could do that if you just said, how could I make it happen? And it requires some sacrifice, but you just have a brainstorm session, sit down and say, how can I make this happen? Where can I find hours in the day? Instead of saying, I can't find hours in the day. Your brain will come up with questions. Whatever kind of questions you ask it will come up with answers to it. So I would set a goal. What's the minimum amount of money that you can live on? Is it $2,000 a month from your salary that you can live on? Basically, what can you live on? And then there's this thing called the 25% rule. So when you're making 25% of that, so a quarter of $2,000, if you use $2,000 as the example, as soon as you're making $500, that's the good point to quit your job. That's what I've heard a lot of people say. Now, I went earlier because I decided to stay with my parents. And so you can do things differently if you want to do things differently. It's just a matter of what you want to sacrifice. Do you have kids? Are you married? And they can kind of help out with this thing or not. So there are variables that is kind of dependent on your situation. But if you get to 25%, then, and you were doing 2 jobs, just imagine how much income you can grow if you're putting your full attention toward it. And then finally, the last step then is to quit your job. And this was so nerve-wracking for me. When I did it, I was like, I don't know if I should do it. I don't know. And it was 3 months that I was really in turmoil about this decision. And then once you do it, it's so easy. This seemed like this massive decision in my head. Oh no, I don't know if I can do it. It was so easy. And that's how I found along this journey. It's been such a personal growth journey. That's something that I wouldn't trade for any of it. In pursuit of doing YouTube, I've read all these personal development books, which I recommend you read. Think and Grow Rich, the beginning of it. I recommend you read You Are a Badass. I recommend you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. There are all sorts of these books that their mindset, they're kind of the beginning section. I would say, You Are a Badass is really focused on mindset. Think and Grow Rich is kind of focused on the desire. Rich Dad, Poor Dad's kind of this whole sort of thing. And so I recommend that you read those books and stuff. It's been such a good personal development journey. That's what I wouldn't trade for anything. Like, do I have that many subscribers? No, but I feel like I've grown so much. I feel like I can communicate so much better. I feel like I have such better mindset. I feel like I'm way happier. Like, I've learned how to be like content with present circumstances. And it's just been such a good personal development journey. Like, if you do it for no other reason, do it for the reason that you're learning how to be brave and to take risks and to really prioritize your desires. You're learning how to live out your purpose and do it with bravery. Like, there are so many reasons to do it besides just you writing the book or making the music or becoming a doctor, whatever it is. Like, I've been using a lot of examples where you're going from kind of a traditional job to a non-traditional job, but it doesn't have to be that way. Maybe you want to go into a traditional job. That's totally fine. We need like a variety of people in order to make this thing happen. And I believe that if everyone pursues their desires full on, that the world would be a much better place. And if people keep hiding from their desires, denying their desires, pretending they don't exist because they have these fears, that is what makes the world a smaller place, more constricted. But it takes all of us to be lit up to have a more lit up world. So yeah, I just encourage you that if you're kind of at this step one and it's 10 years working at that job feels constricting, I just encourage you to, like, if you're married, sit down with your spouse. If it's just you, sit down. Or maybe you could sit down with a friend and outline a plan to quit. Make a timeline, figure out how you're going to do it. Maybe your goal is to quit a year from now, 2 years from now, but we need you to be the most lit up. We need you to pursue your desires, to fulfill your life purpose. I feel that you have a life purpose, for a reason, and that you're robbing the world if you don't do it. So I'm really excited to hear like what you want to do, and I just admonish you to do it. Really step out of the box. It's a brave thing to do. Like, I understand like how scary it seems, but I promise it's not that scary. Just think, what's the smallest step you could take today? It's kind of the lean startup principle. What's the easiest path to what you want? If you want to be a musician, what's the easiest thing you could do today? What's the smallest thing you could do today? And that's what I do when I feel resistance, like, I don't know if I want to do this. That's another good book to read, War of Art. If I feel that resistance, like, I don't want to film today or whatever, I just say, what's the bare minimum I could do today and still get it done? And if every day I do the bare minimum, that adds up to something over the course of a year. And it turns out my bare minimum is pretty good. When I look back on it in retrospect, I'm like, that was pretty good. That was my bare minimum. Wow. And it's better than not doing it at all. Some people are like, I need to do it with excellence or not at all. And that holds a lot of people back. So I would just say, you know what, just half-ass it. I give you permission to do that. It's better than not doing it at all. Just what's the bare minimum? Just get it to your 10,000 hours. So yeah. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think about this. I'm so excited to hear what you guys are doing. Thanks.